Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 2024 World Chess Championship between the champion Ding Liren from China and the challenger Gukesh from India. This is game number 8 out of 14. The match is tied 3.5, 3.5, and it has been heating up. First one to 7.5 points wins. And if we get 7-7, we're going to have some tie breaks. That's the introduction. That was it. Ding gets the white pieces for game number 8. These games have been keeping us on the edge of our seats. I mean, they are dynamic. They are exciting. They are... Whew. That's all I gotta say. Really exhilarating chess. Chances missed by both sides, but nothing too crazy. In the fourth game that he's playing with the white pieces, remember, Ding has played the Ready. He played the London. He played E4 once. Now he plays the English. I've been waiting for Ding to play the English. I've actually been very curious to see where the players are going to go if Ding plays the English, okay? So c4, e5 is possible, right? c4, e6, Queen's Gambit declined, also possible. Gukesh does in fact play the most principled approach, which is the reverse Sicilian defense. And we don't have to wait longer than 1.5 moves into the game for something exciting to happen. Generally, after knight c3, black is playing knight to f6 and knight to c6. This is the system. And when white plays g3, black plays c6. This is called the cutting edge approach. However, Gukesh uncorks bishop to b4. This is not the most common move in the position at all. But basically, black skips the development of the knights because he wants to keep it more flexible, even though we tell all of the beginners to put the knights out before the bishops because you know much more clearly where the knights are going to want to go. The other thing about this move is that the knight can go to the middle and attack the bishop. And this is sort of a funny little thing. Now, from this point, the main line, believe it or not, is putting the bishop all the way back on e7. Now, if you've never played chess before, you're watching this, whether it's on my YouTube, whether it's on Facebook, shout out to everybody watching there. This is not how chess is supposed to look. As a beginner, you're not supposed to move your knight twice. You're not supposed to go, zigzag with the bishop. But let me try to explain this to you in a way that you'll understand. Black basically threatens to take white's knight and damage white's pawn structure. White doesn't like that, so in turn, counterattacks the bishop. The bishop goes back here because anywhere else, it would be susceptible to getting chased around, while also helping white improve the position. By putting the bishop there, you actually offer up the bishop for capture. But somehow, the dynamics of the position work out. And so black basically puts a bunch of pawns on dark squares because they don't have a dark square bishop anymore, and their position is actually kind of nice. This is the meta, and the other part of this is that you're going to attack the knight at some point, and the knight's going to have to make a decision. So we have knight f3, d6, and by the way, those of you that follow my channel closely, you know that I recently went to Sweden to play the Battle of Generations, and Pia Kramling plays this. She plays bishop b4 a lot, and I remember preparing for it, being really annoyed, and that is why against Pia, I played queen c2. I tried to play a little bit of a sideline, because this is actually a super annoying line. Now, basically, white has two approaches. Play for d4 and don't play for d4. Ding chooses to simply develop his bishop. Gukesh now has to make a move attacking the knight. The knight can leave the position, or he can take. And now we get the first, well, in my opinion, pretty big surprise. Not after this move. This move actually makes sense, but the point of that move starts making serious sense. You would think just take with the queen, develop the knight. No, he takes with the knight. And in this position, with black, you castle, whatever. No. In this position, Gukesh plays f6. That's a gangster move right there. That is a f6. We love that. We traded our dark squared bishop. We're replacing pawns on the dark squares. And we're supporting our center so this pawn can go forward. This pawn defends that pawn so that pawn can go forward. White's got the bishops. White wants to make pawn trades. For example, look how much this trade would improve the position for white. From 0.2 to 0.9 to 1.0 to 1.1, just simply opening the position when you have two bishops or one is helpful. Black's not going to do that, right? So we have castles, bishop e6 chosen, and now b3. And Ding is basically just like, well, I'm going to go here, and I'm going to slowly prepare pawn breaks. Now, optically, white's got a great position. I love white's position. It is black now who's relying on dynamics. Now I'm going to throw something at the beginners that are going to get confused a little bit, and the intermediate and advanced folks are going to learn some stuff. Sometimes I get criticized for not being too instructive. I'm too much of a chess entertainer. But those people are lying to themselves. They don't understand anything about chess anyway. Neither do I, but more than you, so I'm able to present it to you in a way that's funny and interesting. I'm just saying it how it is. Now, excuse me, I'm going to take a sip of my coffee. So, in chess, there are dynamics and statics. The easy way to understand that is traditional chess wisdom. Certain things tell you that, a person has an advantage. When white has the bishop pair, it's an advantage. Open position for the bishops is an advantage. Black's got a really weird little pokeball bathtub structure going on here, half a pokeball. And doesn't have the two bishops and also hasn't castled. But black relies on what's called dynamics. The way to offset those traditional imbalances or deficiencies of your position is to act a little bit cooler than you are. Like if, you're really shy, but you get a tattoo, now everyone's going to be like, that person's cool just because you change your perception a little bit. You know what I'm saying? When you walk with a straight back instead of being hunched over, you give people the perception, you're kind of confident in everything. So fake it till you make it type of thing. Bishop A3. Ding is sacrificing a pawn. And the reason he's doing this is you can't open the position like this. Look what happens. +2. So again, you can't open the position when you have the bishops. Now, rook c1, defending. Gukesh is doing a very nice job restricting Ding's position, not letting him get any activity. Knight e1 back. And I would like you to keep this move in the back of your mind, okay? Rook e8, f4. This is, folks, if there ever was a boxing match, you're witnessing a chess equivalent. I mean, these are haymakers at the center. Gukesh put out this brick wall of pawns supported by C and F, very, very, very imbalanced, kind of like breaking the traditional wisdom of chess. And Ding is just winging, just throwing, just boom, boom, just throwing haymakers left and right. Absolutely, just not guarding himself at all, not keeping the hands up. Look at this. Now Gukesh got a take, and Ding captures on f4, and Gukesh chops down the other way. B takes, but here comes his knight. Gukesh doesn't have a center pawn remaining. Ding has both. This is probably the most imbalanced game of the match. Every single moment of this middle game, something interesting could have occurred. But as always, Ding is down 33 minutes on the clock. So, one inescapable reality is that Ding is going to be down a ridiculous amount of time. We have knight a6 played. Again, here there are so many variations. You could probably analyze this game for 2 hours. I'm not going to. Even though that would be good watch time, I'd probably have good ad revenue, but I'm not going to do that. But look, again, ultimately, white's got the bishops, and white has some open lines. And white's got to attack those open lines, and probably the only real way is going to be to push these pawns forward, but you can't. And you may wonder, why didn't he just retreat? It's actually surprisingly challenging to push these pawns. If you push all of them, oops. So you have to, defend and attack in a coordinated manner. So he plays rook e4, knight a6. The knight comes back from the e1 square to stop the black knight from coming forward. Queen c7, you attack the bishop, and the bishop drops back. And now d3. This is a very tense moment. It's a very tense moment because Ding has 33 minutes for 21 more moves. Again, friendly reminder of the time control that I've been telling you in every single recap, but just in case you forget, they have 2 hours to make 40 moves. They have no bonus time. Your time ticks down from 0. You never get any more. On the 40th move of the game, once you make the time control, you get more time. That is when they start giving you 30 seconds per move. That's just so chess stays at a relatively decent quality. But this is this is a very, very complicated game. There are 1,000,001 plans. You can try to get rid of the knight in the center of the board. You can try to make improvements, right? You can try to bring the queen. Maybe white's going to, at some point, try to start a kingside attack. But, black can also play knight b4, and you got to decide, are you going to give up your bishop pair? This bishop is really nice, but I'm not really sure how useful it is. Every single piece is sort of knight f3, and now here, he is trying to get rid of his powerful knight, and Gukesh breaks a principle that my own coach has told me, which is don't move knights out of the center of the board if you don't have to. He didn't have to. He probably could have played bishop g6, knight b4, but he plays knight d7. The thing is, when Gukesh makes a mistake, it's equal. When I make a mistake, I explode. Boom. And that's the end of the game. Rook e8, rook e8. But if you just look at the position, I know it's equal. I don't know how Ding is supposed to play here. I don't know. I got news for you. Neither does he. He has 25 minutes remaining to make 19 moves. 19 moves or he loses on time. Every one of the moves on the engine is one piece to one square. That's how you know the position's very complicated. The computer here wants Ding to play king f1. I think this move has two purposes. It protects the e2 pawn anytime you move the queen away, and also you get off the dark squares where the queen could potentially attack you. But Ding goes here, and apparently this is a mistake, because now Gukesh, given an opportunity, lashes out immediately. Gukesh is a sniper. Gukesh is like, you know Alex Pereira, the UFC champ? Gukesh has the left hook of death. The second you leave yourself open, that's it. One to the face, done. B5 on the board, haymaker landed, 50 to 24, 18 moves remaining for the time control. Ding is on the ropes immediately, burns 7 minutes. Why is this move so powerful? Because it's not about c takes b5. Because then simply rook b5. What Ding had missed is that when the pawn captures, the queen sneaks behind the pawn. And this is why you needed the king on f1, because after king f1 cb5, Gukesh uses a little magic trick to get this pawn to b5 and get its friend there too, and now he is better because that pawn's simply in the line of sight of the bishop, and then these pawns are going to be connected past pawns. Past pawns are pawns that have no pawns blocking him to get to the end of the board. Say that 10 times fast. Past pawns are pawns that have no pawns blocking them to get to the other side of the board. Past pawns, no, I'm just kidding. And when they're connected like this and on the outskirts of the board, meaning A, B, or G, H, really difficult to stop, especially if they have they have like a VIP escort from the other side of the board. And Ding inevitably blunders. 15 minutes remaining for 15 moves. He needs to maximum spend 1 minute on every move for the remainder of the game. He loses the pawn on A2. And he's on the ropes. And I would also like to tell you, this is when I woke up. Because the game started at 4 a.m. Eastern time. I've been saying it. I love chess, but not enough to wake up this early. Bishop A2 on the board. And I woke up and was like, oh, Ding's down 30 minutes, and he has 15 minutes to make 15 moves, and he's much worse. He's just down a pawn, and the pawns are coming. Yeah. Well, that's been the story of the match. Unbelievable. And the thing is, after yesterday when Ding saved that game, I thought all the momentum went back to him. Evidently not. And yet, somehow, to make a reference to Naruto, I don't watch much anime, but when I was much younger, my friend would send me, those ancient YouTube videos of Naruto fight scenes, and I have one in my mind, which is the Rock Lee one, where he drops his weights, and you find out that his weights are like 100 pounds, not like, 2 pounds, because most people don't wear 100-pound, like, weights. And Ding, in many ways, reminds me of that. When the pressure is on, and somehow his back is to the wall, and he can play freely and not overthink. Me and Ding are not that different. Minus many things, but, we're pretty similar. And when the pressure is, like, at its peak, but it's sort of, he's kind of gotten himself in trouble, Ding just absolutely turns it on. Bishop d4. And now Gukesh has a 50-50. What does he block the queen attack with? And he should block the queen attack. One of these pieces should come to the game because this is actually a very difficult position. If he moves the queen, this pawn loses a guard, and after rook a1, rook a5, white is chilling. Gukesh chooses the wrong knight. Gukesh now, just like yesterday, at the critical moment, takes a pause and doesn't play the right move. Now, that move makes perfect sense. I mean, bringing a knight from the edge of the board, like, how can that move not make sense? Well, as it turns out, that was the wrong move. That was not the best move. But then he follows it up with an even worse move. The black bishop apparently needed to run here to kind of put pressure like this. But obviously he didn't like something about this move. He didn't like that white could get some extra time. So instead he says, I'm going to go bishop b3 because this move wins a tempo and I clear the path for my a-pawn. But bishop b3, in many ways, I don't quite understand, and I would love to ask Gukesh about this move because white has pressure on the dark squares. White probably wants to go queen e1 and here, but maybe Gukesh really didn't like that the queen was getting to the c2 square, which is why he decided to play this move. Now, by the way, white can take this, but that doesn't work because you both lose your queens and then you lose a rook. So Gukesh follows up a breathtaking game. I mean, he's played absolutely lights out with not one, not two, but 3 mistakes in a row, and now Ding is pressuring. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Gukesh just got here, and I don't know. It's almost like he was deer in the headlights a little bit. I mean, listen, I would know. I wouldn't dare put that upon him. He's 2783 for crying out loud. But, you know, he obviously miscalculated something. He found something he didn't like. But then he chose not to play the bishop to d5, which was the right approach. And by the way, I just hope you understand, I saw some comments in yesterday's video like, oh yeah, look at you criticizing Gukesh. If you think I'm criticizing these players, you're dumb. You're dumb. Somebody had to tell you, and you found out in this video. I am not criticizing them. I'm telling you what the best moves were according to grandmaster commentators and computers. That's all I'm telling. I'm just giving you the facts. I'm not telling you I would have played any of these moves. I would have lost already with both colors to both players. Are we clear? Cool. I'm not backseating. I'm front seat. I drive the car. So bishop d4, one mistake, and three. And this is pretty wild because Gukesh needed to put the bishop back in the center, at least, or get the pawns rolling. But what's funny is the commentators predicted this move. I was watching Daniel Naroditsky and Peter Lecko, excellent combo, and they actually predicted this sequence. And now, after queen f2, Ding is a pawn down. But the knight, how does black protect this knight, right? What, like, how do you do this? I don't know. And guess what? After this and this, d4's coming. The knight is pinned. The knight is pinned two ways. Somehow Gukesh got a pawn up and got stuck. And now, after rook c7, white is winning. At a high depth, white here is +3. This is Ding's biggest advantage since the first game of the match. It's been like a week and like 2 extra days because they have rest days. And Ding here, remember I told you to keep a move in mind? You know the game. Knight f3. Knight e1, right? That knight went to c2. Then d4, then f3. And then, in this position, the knight had to go to e1. Now, nobody on the planet thought that Ding was going to play this move. Not because they were trying to insult him. But allow me to explain why that is the best move. The point is that now, in every tactical sequence, there are no checks. So if, for example, here, white played h3, black always has tactics on white. Like, black has a tactic to move the knight and be able to take. For example, there are moments in the game after, like, let's say knight d4, which is the move that he played in the game, where black can move the knight, and if you were to take the queen, like, for instance, knight d2 is a good example of this. There is stuff like knight takes d3. And the point is that if this, and the king is completely, right? But by putting the knight on e1, black no longer has a move here. If black plays b4, white plays d4. If knight b3, the king is always protected. d5, and rook c1 is no longer a check. Knight e1 is absolute paralysis for the black position, and the game literally ends because white just marches in the pawn. There's bishop f7, then there's bishop f4. If you play knight to e5, there's d4 again. The game is over because the knight protects the king. How unbelievable is that? But instead of that, Ding plays knight d4 and the game goes on. The bishop goes back to f7. The knight leaps into c6. This is way more human because now the knight is playing interference. It's blocking all the pieces' communication. We have rook c6, bishop c6, queen c6, bishop c5. Ding has done everything right. He put the knight on c6. Normally, 2 pieces for the rook is a bad trade for the person giving up the 2 pieces. But bishop c5, Ding is winning. He's got to be winning. And the thing is, if you play knight c5 after queen c, this is a losing endgame. This is a losing endgame because you can't, you know, even if you get here, well, also there's rook c8, by the way. Actually, rook yeah, rook c8 wins the bishop. But it's over. It's over. Bishop c5. Gukesh here plays a solid move, h6. What he's trying to do is make sure that his king always has no back rank problems, and now Ding has to win the game. Ding, absolute gangster here. He can make multiple moves. He plays king e1. The king returns to the homeland after castling. Now the king is going to walk to d2. On d2, the king will protect the rook, enabling it to move. The only thing that Gukesh has going for him here is these pawns. The existence of the pawns just makes white a little bit hesitant, makes him a little bit unhappy, makes him a little bit like under pressure. But he plays the wrong pawn forward. Now, that is, to me, the best move. To me, that's the best move. The computer wants a4, which to me doesn't even make any sense because the pawns are now blockaded. Like, how can you put the pawns on the opposite color of the white bishop? It doesn't make any sense. But the computer thinks it makes perfect sense. But every commentator, and to my eye, I thought b4 was completely the reasonable move because you get the closer pawn down, right? And the pawn is defended. So b4 played. Again, engine is going to call it a mistake. Now here, Ding's got to choose. Does he finish the king journey or does he go to the middle with queen d4? Queen d4 makes sense. Friendly reminder, they both have 5 more moves to make. Nobody's really in a deep time trouble. Gukesh has 8.5 minutes for 5 moves, but he's not going to lose on time. So it's either king d2 or queen d4. White now has to correctly get the pieces to that side of the board, correctly trade the queens at the right moment, and simply win the game. For example, not simply. If the queens come off the board, white is completely winning. White is completely winning because these pawns just aren't going to cut it. Rook c8 check, king h7, rook c7, bishop e6, rook b7, and after this, rook a7, and the pawns can't, the pawns will just die. And if the pawns die, the endgame is winning because white has a rook for a knight and an extra pawn. It's just winning. Don't ask any questions. I promise it's just winning. Ding plays queen d4. But now, Gukesh, he's been clutched the entire match. He's very good at finding the right moment to strike. The point of queen d4 is that you prevent knight e5 because queen d8 is now a check and wins the pawn here. So if black plays king h7, Ding is going queen d6. I just told you trading the queens is important. The reason that Ding did not play king d2 is because queen h1, king d2 is the same thing. This knight hangs, all the pawns fall, queen e7, white is winning. So Ding plays queen d4. Gukesh is on the ropes. Knight e5 is not possible because queen d8 is going to win the pawn on a5. So what is Gukesh going to do? He's going to play knight e5. And obviously something has gone wrong. Gukesh is chucking the pawn on a5 to fully invest in the passed pawn on b4. And when it's going to land on the b3 square, the bishop from f7 is going to protect it. It's not a very pleasant sight for white. And probably Ding should have gone king d2. And after king d2, this is not possible because the king protects the rook and bishop b4 snags a pawn. And if you play queen b5, bishop c3, white is winning. White won a pawn. White's won a pawn and now is going to start the trading process. So king d2 needed to be played, which is kind of crazy because he had just played king e1. He had just played king e1. So you would think, don't even think here. Just go king d2. Not so simple. Chess is not always so simple. You play a position like this, you might overthink, but king d2 was begging to be played. But Ding switches plans midway. And suddenly, now he plays king d2, but now queen g2. And suddenly Ding can't do this. If Ding now goes for this pawn, in comes bishop h5. And folks, out of nowhere, Gukesh has organized a fatal counterattack on the white king. And speaking of which, Gukesh's move h6 was so clutch, getting the king over here. If rook e1, you have knight f3 picking up the rook and then it's mate. So suddenly Ding is like, what have I done? How is this possible? So what has Ding shown time and time again in this match? When he senses he is out of control of the position, or the position is too high risk, he begins repeating. And at the time control, on the 39th and 40th move of the game, Ding offers a repetition of moves. I don't know why it was given a mistake. And Ding makes the 3rd repetition. The computer is giving these mistakes because, it thinks that white can play on. Don't disregard this. Ding repeats moves. They have repeated moves 3 times. And in chess, when you repeat the position 3 times, the game ends in a draw. So what Gukesh now has to do is pause the clock and say, I'm claiming a draw by 3-fold repetition. My next move is queen g2. That is the rule. Or he can play it, and then the boys can look at each other. In this tournament, in this format, you cannot offer a draw before move 40. Yeah, Gukesh now spends some time and doesn't repeat the position. Gukesh plays on down a rook. What? What? Oh my God. Yo, this man is nuts. And after rook c2, queen e6, he's refusing a repetition. I mean, he obviously is taking a very calculated risk, deciding that, hey, Ding is out of control. He's kind of crashing out, as the kids say, and, you know, I have a chance. Yeah, but Ding is a little bit too experienced here. And also, let's not forget, white now can win this pawn. So now Gukesh is down a pawn, but he is getting this pawn to b3, and he's basically relying on the fact that that pawn is going to cause problems. Now, one little quick thing here. You know, obviously Ding made an inaccuracy in allowing this counterplay. If Ding had just cleanly gone king d2, honestly, he might win this game. Because black is never getting the knight in the game, like I said, because then white can play bishop b4. If Ding had gone king d2 and maybe like slowly consolidated his position, I don't know why I'm drawing e4. It's just like, yeah. But he would have been very likely, I think, to go on to win. But yeah, now Gukesh is still playing for a win. Unbelievable. But he's a pawn down. And queen d5, queen b4. Unfortunately, here it's kind of an unstoppable move meets unstoppable force meets immovable object. And also one more thing I will say is right here, queen d6 was even better. And after something like queen h3, bishop d4, black is lost unless black finds knight f3, sacrificing the entire knight. But the game ends in a perpetual, and apparently this is a draw. So if Ding had gone here and not just gone for the pawn, it might have been a totally different story. I mean, Gukesh might have just totally underestimated queen d6 or not even seen it, because obviously just look at this. But ultimately, folks, Ding gets the queen trade basically immediately, and the game ends in a sequence of moves like this. And the players agree to a draw. You might look at this and go, why'd they agree to a draw? I don't understand. Well, takes, bishop c4 goes after this. If white saves the pawn, bishop d3. And this is a draw because the bishops are of the opposite color, and the pawns are equivalent, 3 per side. So yeah, basically, you know, nobody's going to break through anybody's defenses here, and the players agree to a draw. Big chances missed. Gukesh played the best sequence of 25 moves of the entire World Championship match, I think. And then he decided to make 3 mistakes in a row. That was kind of crazy. That sort of came out of nowhere. Ding completely seized the momentum. Knight e1 was breathtaking, but really nobody thought that it was findable. And then, you know, from here, yeah, Ding probably should have gone king d2. Chances missed by both players, but overall, the match is now 4-4 after 8 games. We got 6 more games to go. Oh my goodness. It's an epic match. It's an epic match. Tomorrow's my birthday, just letting you know. Gotham Chessboard is out at Walmart. Check your local Walmart. Check the Walmart website. And Chessly 2.0 is on the way. 9 days away, the big launch. That's all. See you for game number 9. Get out of here.